Thanks for letting us come talk story with you guys today. I'm curious as to what's going on in the legislative process. I see you guys are posting up a lot of things about what's happening, and I figured we'd come to the source and find out from you what are the bills that are going through, which one are the most important, and where are we at with this?
Yeah, so we just kind of started realizing that legislation was going to be huge this year. It's going to be a total focus on Lahaina, and we wanted to kind of be the watchdogs to make sure that things aren't getting through without our community knowing, and also push forward the bills that we are in support of. And mainly sitting here on Ka'anapali Beach, day 117 of our Fishing for Housing camp. Our three initial demands were to convert short-term rentals north of Ka'anapali. 87% of our housing up there is short-term rentals, leaves only 13% for our community, so we wanted our governor to put a moratorium. We also wanted mortgage protection for all of the community members that are still paying mortgages on their rubble while trying to figure their life out, and we wanted tenant protection. So when legislation session started, we actually were tracking a bunch of bills that were put through. We are monitoring two really important STR bills that would give the counties, so it's not necessarily for the whole state, but it gives the power to the counties to be able to phase out short-term rentals, which would be huge for Maui County to be able to put legislation in within ourselves for the future. We're also looking at rent protections, tenant protections, and mortgage protection bills, and I think those are mainly our most important and our huge focus. Of course, you can see we are tracking a lot other wildfire management, DLNR, seaworm bills, and some vegetation management, stuff like that, but yeah.
Where are we at? I see some of them have gone through the second round. What's the next step for these important bills that you're tracking? And I see some have amendments tied to them. Are you concerned about the amendments that are being tagged on to these bills?
Yeah, so where we're at right now is they are just going through their representatives' Senate floor or their House floor, getting that final last little bit before they're going to cross their houses, right? Most of everything that we are seeing is doing absolutely great. A lot of support for what we are garnering, as well as our initiative to keep everybody informed has garnered a lot of testimony, which is awesome. Most of the amendments on the bills that we are most important in support for have been all good and everything. There are amendments to some, one of our bills that we are in opposition for that I don't think necessarily, amendment or not, I kind of like to remind everybody that legislation can get a little bit dangerous, right? So even if they amend that bill as it goes and it crosses back over and it goes through each of its houses, the original introducer of the bill, like the Senate side, could say, we don't like all those amendments that you guys did. We want our bill like it was before. And then the House goes, okay, behind closed doors, and then that bill goes directly back to where it is. So when you're looking at dangerous bills, you really have to be careful. You cannot really trust amendments. Honestly, it just needs to be rewritten next year.
I'm really curious as to where you guys are at with this advisory committee, elected advisory committee that would steer the recovery of Lahaina. Where are you guys at on that?
As for Lahaina Strong, I think we are very weary to have an elected advisory committee because the power could really end up in the wrong hands. And it's a lot of power for 9 people. It would be amazing for it to all end up in the right hands, but it's just a little scary to have that what if, So like Katie said, we really are in alignment that we feel this bill needs to go back to the drawing board. We need to get a lot of more community input on it, something that the community in its whole feels comfortable with, and try again next session.
Okay, so we're talking about the legislative stuff that's going on, and you guys have had, in my eyes, like some historical turnout of support for Lahaina. What did it take for you to bring the public up to speed on how to engage with the government process, because I think a lot of people over the years have been apathetic. We see it at Akaku where people don't necessarily show up at the polls. What did it take for you guys to get the general public to care and to get up to speed on this process?
I'm gonna start that with you. So Courtney's been doing an amazing job sending out like weekly updates, giving talking points for testimony. But I just want to touch on our first ever like Lahaina Strong event was a county council event, and we had maybe like not even 30 people. And I remember being like, "Dang, Court, like I thought we were gonna have more." And she said like, "This is just the first drumbeat of a very like long." Song. So I feel like we really started with 30 people showing up to county council, continuing to educate them, and now Courtney sends out a bunch of emails. So I'm gonna let her touch on that.
Yeah, so we've been sending out weekly emails on the bills that have hearings that week, or maybe bills that need attention. I think that's been really important. We break a bill down, which can sometimes be 20 or so pages, into bite-sized pieces where they can understand and digest. We also provide sample testimony so they can even get a better idea and deeper understanding of what the bill means and decide whether or not they want to support it and how that's going to affect our community. And really just sharing with the community and reiterating the fact that the Lahaina that we want to see depends on us showing up. Legislative session is very important. For most of us, this is our first go-around. And getting the community involved is really important so no one's left in the dark as to what's going to happen as we move forward with the healing and recovery of our hometown. And not only that, but also it's been great reaching the younger generation through social media and getting them involved and having the younger generation show interest down to elementary kids. And when they come down to the camp, they come in here and they see what we're doing and ask what the number on the bills are or on the board is, and being able to have that conversation, I think that's great, and letting them know, that we're doing this for you. One day you're going to take over. So it's been amazing to see that we have involvement from the keiki and support from their parents as well, that this is a collaborative effort that we need to work on as a community.
Yeah, in fact, I was reflecting on my kumu Ed Lindsay, who talked about that oftentimes power is fractionalized when they intentionally put a chasm between the different groups. Can you tell me how it is that to have this kind of turnout on Oahu, to have this much power, people's power, in this process of government legislative process, how do you feel about the different groups coming together? Do you feel like you've done a successful job of bringing in the other community groups to get this far?
I believe that across all the grassroots organization and group, we all really fell in alignment, and we understood what the goal was, and that was to malama our community, to do what we need to do to take care of each other, this place, and move in this forward direction. And that has made all the difference and has helped. It reminds us in each organization that we're not alone and we're all moving towards the same goal. And it's been really uplifting to see even organizations outside of the Lahaina community, outside of the Maui community, step in, and kokua as well. And I think that it's really beautiful. I've never seen community come together like this before. And it's really helpful and it's uplifting to the Lahaina community for them to see that much support.
In fact, I believe it was 2018 after the wildfires that your Lahaina Strong was organized. And I think like the amount of work you've done, could you have imagined where it is today? Under the circumstances, of course, right? Talk a little bit about the inception and where it's come today.
So yes, Lahaina Strong started in 2018 after those wildfires. It honestly just started off as a fundraiser that I just wanted to help the families get a little bit of financial help after the fact. And I didn't really do much with Lahaina Strong after. not thinking that unfortunately 5 years later we would have another fire bigger magnitude. So in the beginning I was really kicking myself in the butt, like, gosh, you should have done a nonprofit, or but I was young. But to see where we are at now, and the support that we were able to grow, I think some of it stemmed from Lahaina Strong being a name that was already known from 2018, and looking at what happened in 2018, and hey, I like what happened back then. Let's pick a familiar name, and then just really talking as a group and seeing what our goals are, what our wants are, and then being very transparent with the community and even engaging them. I feel like we really pride ourselves in engaging the community and what they want to see, and then trying to implement that in our fights. So we're not just making decisions and being like, this is what we want. We really do care about what the community wants. And also, like Courtney said, we touch with the other grassroots organizations and say, how do you feel on this? Are we in alignment or not? So we've really built amazing people power, and I feel like Lahaina Strong is very proud of that.
Well, I'm really proud for you guys. I think you've done an amazing job. And I know there's a long road ahead. It's not just where we are today. It's the road ahead, right? What will actually happen in the recovery and the rebuilding of your home. You talked a little bit about the education of the public. How about the education of the tourists? I mean, I'm seeing it, like, just coming here today, I'm like, wow, it's a lot. There's a lot happening here, and a lot of activity right in front of you off the boats and on the beach. And talk a little bit about your engagement with the tourist faction and how that ties in to getting people to understand the important issues in this recovery process going forward.
I mean, I think when it comes to that, like, our community, because we are still healing, it is kind of this double-edged sword of some people needing to go back to work, others choosing not to be able to grieve, and then having tourists here trying to enjoy their vacation, and it gets in this kind of like weird kind of, it's a double edge, right? So I think that when we're up here and we're trying to educate and trying to speak what's going on, we do come across a lot of tourists that are very concerned, and they've been following it, and then others that aren't. And my hope, and Lahaina Strong's hope, is that we can at least keep the conversation going and educate them on a lot of our struggles that they might, they drive through Lahaina town and they see that, the burn zone, but they don't actually feel what we're going through on a daily, right? So I think that if we can open that discussion up and open that communication up, a lot of times they leave and they're like, wow. So I think we're making an impact, hopefully, on that they, understand a little bit more. So I think it's positive.
So give me two critical issues in this recovery process today that you guys are tracking are the most important. I see that the county is doing their weekly meetings at Lahaina Civic Center. Is that helping? Are they tackling the issues that are important to you? And what would you say the two most important issues, 2 to 3 important issues that you feel are priority?
I feel for Lahaina Strong, 2 to 3 issues that are very important to us are, number one, housing. What we're hearing from the community is that they have not even started the grieving process because the unstable housing that they're in. They don't know when they're going to get the next paper on their door. You need to be out in 48 hours. So living in that constant state of fear, they're not even able to move to the next step of grieving. So our number one is definitely housing. Once we see this housing part through, I think we definitely want to touch on mental health a little more. And then for me and Lahaina Strong, I would say third, really starting to help to open people's minds and diversify the economy. Like Katie had touched on, we do hear a lot of people, they don't feel right going back to tourism. They're not very happy with profit being put over the people time and time again. So Lahaina Strong wants to kind of help people to broaden their mindset and maybe look outside of tourism. But we've just come to terms that people are not there headspace-wise until they get into long-term stable housing. And as for the meetings that the government is having, we appreciate the effort. And they've reached out to us a couple times on what do you guys think and how do you guys feel about that. And we appreciate them engaging the community. we definitely think that a lot of work can be done and a lot of improvements can happen. And we really want to touch on that it should be a two-way communication street. A lot of them tend to be, we're coming with this information for you guys and take it or leave it. But it really needs to be more of, what are you guys feeling? What are you guys seeing? What's happening to you folks? And we just want to make sure that it's more of a two-way street.
So the near future, you guys here at the camp, how many people are here with you still? How many people started up? I believe it was in November, you said. And the issue of housing, obviously, the whole fishing for housing movement that started this whole thing. Tell me a little bit about where we are in that process and what does the near future look like for your coalition down here on Kaanapali Beach?
Yeah, so when we did start, we had an unwavering amount of support. Our main goal in setting up down here not only was to bring awareness to everything that was going on, but we had all of our people in these very hotels, right? And we wanted to be right in front so that we could, our people could see us standing up, fighting for them. And then also we're in front of the biggest tourism area on the west coast, on the west side. So we're here, like, we're not going to hide our grief. We're not going to hide how nuts everybody feels, right? And we kind of wanted to be a safety beacon in case people needed to come, because we were gearing up for November 22nd, I believe, was a huge move out date. The Westin moved everybody out. And so it was kind of like 3 weeks of chaos because people didn't know where they were going. And Red Cross, I mean, they were shuffling back and forth and it was just chaotic. And to be like, you can come stay with us, you can come stay with us, was huge, right? And we had, throughout this time since we've been here, we have a lot of people that will come for a few weeks and then go, right? Our goal is not to like promote people for staying down here because honestly, the conditions are a lot. So we want people to come down, stay, hopefully we can find resources and get them moved along. Two of our people two of them just had babies. So we got one of them housing, so that's awesome. And so we're kind of just working and kind of continuing to move people out as much as possible. And then we've gotten support. I mean, people coming from other islands to come and stay and just like take space with us is huge. Like we welcome, people to come just take space, and so we can continue to be here, hopefully not too much longer. But we are looking at April 1st if the governor will finally drop that hammer.
I'd like to add to that too. Sure. Yeah. And I think since being down here from November for fishing for housing and being on Kaanapali Beach, it posed a very unique opportunity for not just us to raise awareness of what's going on within the Lahaina community, but for different organizations to come down and also share what they're doing, their initiatives, and raising awareness with tourists and locals about what they're working on and what they're doing. One big one is Help Maui Rise. So Help Maui Rise has raised, I think, over $600,000 at this point, directly into the fundraisers of families who lost their homes in the fire. And we collab with them, and we did in November and December, an ornament drive where you could get an ornament for $100 minimum donation, and that would go directly into the GoFundMe accounts of someone who lost their home. And within a month, we raised at minimum $60,000. So things like that. So not only, are we just fighting and pushing for dignified housing, but just collabing with different organizations and bringing as much awareness to Lahaina as possible across all the organizations willing to come down. We've had schools come down, ocean safety come down, and this really became almost like a resiliency hub for the community and a way for us to gather. And some people have never been on Kaanapali Beach in years. Or kupuna, they'll walk down here and they'll say, I haven't been down here since I was a child. So to see them do that and see them sit in the tents and to talk story with one another and just really be present and unwind and unplug from the reality that we're facing once you leave the beach is really nice to see.
Yeah, I imagine that's really the hopeful part, right? Given everything you've been through, to come to this place of seeing that kind of hope and seeing how this whole thing that you've created as a resiliency hub has really impacted the community in a positive way. So I understand that some of the media that was like flooding the gates at the very front end of things are starting to back out a little bit. Is there anything that you want to say today? I'm hoping we can carry this conversation forward. But is there anything you need to say today as we part ways? Is there anything that you feel is really important that you want to have heard?
Where do we start? I know. Well, let me get my list out.
Closing comments, so to speak.
I think the most important thing is too that we are still down here and we're still trudging through legislation and following along. It seems super scary with legislation, but it literally it's super fascinating, right? So it's a lot of our first sessions, and now we're figuring all this out, and it's kind of interesting. So feel free to reach out for any questions on that. And also, we're still down here, and we're holding on because we haven't really gotten fully what we want. And until that happens, we're not going anywhere, and we would love any support and all the people to come down. Yeah.
So with Katie touching on us being down here, our first date to maybe pack this up and leave would be April 1st if governor decides to drop that hammer, and if not, a win would be, if not all, majority of the bills that we are really advocating for to pass through session, mortgage abatement, rent control, stuff like that. And that's what we would look for as a win if the governor doesn't drop the hammer. So that's probably looking like May 3rd. I know a lot of people are like, oh, what's going on down there and how long? So I just want to make that clear. Yeah, we're here hopefully April 1st. If not, May 3rd, we'll look at where we are legislation-wise and see if we can claim that win from there.
One thing that I would like to close out and leave with is for people to remember to keep the conversation going and remember what happened to Lahaina. Not just what happened to Lahaina, but remember what a beautiful place it was. And we can get back there and we can build back better. And for the community and for people, the world that's watching how we come out of this, to remember that it's not just a location on a map that makes this place beautiful. It's not just the history of the town that makes this place unique, but it's also the people. And it's important that the people can stay in Lahaina, can remain in Lahaina, because if you take that away, it's just a place. So really just amplifying the voices of people in our community and continuing to share the stories and keep reminding the world that, there's a lot of different parts that makes Lahaina Lahaina, but more importantly, it's the people.
Ooh, yeah, beautiful. This is Kat Tracy with Akaku, Lens on Lahaina. Aloha.